Okay, imagine a reality where physical matter, literally everything around you, doesn't actually exist, and the periodic table as we know it is entirely, fundamentally wrong. Welcome to this explainer. Today we're diving deep into Walter Russell's incredibly dense 1927 text, The Universal One, to explore his highly unorthodox metaphysical cosmology. It's this wild, fascinating text that blends science and spirituality in a way that aggressively challenged the physicists of his time. He proposed a radically different view of reality, and we're going to unpack the whole thing right now. Right off the bat, Russell hits us with this quote, and it immediately sets an absolute, uncompromising tone. He posits that there is zero separation between the creator and the physical universe. God didn't just build the universe from the outside looking in, God is the universe. Every single star, planet, and person we observe is just a part of this singular divine expression. To wrap our heads around these massive assertions, we're going to break it down from the macro to the micro. We'll start with mind, light, and God, look at the illusion of matter. Dive into the physics of opposites, map it all out on the cosmic clock, and finally, talk about awakening the inner mind to unlock human genius. All right, kicking things off with mind, light, and God, the singular substance. This is really the bedrock of Russell's entire philosophy. So when Russell talks about light, he is absolutely not talking about the physical illumination from the bulb on your desk lamp or the sun. He defines it as the actual, living, thinking material of God. This means all energy and literally all existence is just mind expressing itself through light. The entire universe is just this one continuous substance in a constant state of action. Which brings us to our next point, the illusion of matter, or form in motion. Because if everything is just light and mind, what's the deal with the solid objects we interact with every single day? Well, Russell throws a curveball here. He argues that matter, space, and time, they don't actually exist as objective realities. They're merely temporary optical illusions created by the motion of that one substance. The universal substance itself is eternal and formless, while what we call matter is just a fleeting illusion of dimension. In Russell's view, your physical reality is quite literally just mind in motion. Think of it like this. The text has a brilliantly vivid analogy for this concept. Picture a completely still, tranquil ocean. That's the universal mind. Now imagine a massive steamer's propeller churning in the water. That is the active process of divine thinking. As it spins, it whips up all these temporary bubbles and foam. Those fragile little bubbles? That's what we call planets, suns, and the physical matter making up you and me. Eventually, the turning stops, and those temporary forms inevitably dissolve right back into that silent ocean of mind. So, what's making that ocean move in the first place? Let's dive into the physics of opposites, the actual mechanics of this universe. Here's where we get to what Russell calls the sex principle. And you have to scratch whatever biological definition you're thinking of right now, because he entirely redefines the word. In this framework, it's the fundamental driving force behind all physical force and motion. It's the cosmic division of a singular mind into opposite, pulling and pushing desires, the urge to divide and the urge to unite. The text asserts that this creates a sort of cosmic breathing, a perfectly balanced rhythmic interchange of opposites. On one side, you've got generation, labeled male. This is an electric, centripetal force that pulls inward to build matter up. On the flip side is radiation, labeled female, a magnetic, centrifugal force that pushes outward and tears matter down. The universe is literally breathing in and out through these opposing forces. To make sense of how this energy actually moves, Russell uses the analogy of an echo bouncing off a cliff. Imagine you're standing in a canyon and you shout. Your sound radiates outward, it expands. But it doesn't just travel endlessly. It impacts the cliffside, which acts as a wall of inertia. That impact forces the sound waves to regenerate, contract, and bounce right back at you as an echo. In this cosmology, energy doesn't truly travel in a straight line forever. It constantly reproduces and regenerates itself by bouncing between these forces of expansion and contraction. And if the universe is running on this constant, breathing rhythm, Russell argues we can map it out perfectly. Let's look at the cosmic clock and how we measure the illusion. Now, this is where Russell goes completely against the grain and boldly challenges traditional science. He claims that Mendeleev's universally accepted periodic table is just flat out wrong. Where modern science relies on physical instruments, Russell's cosmology relies on inner cosmic consciousness. He actually posits that elements are arranged in a 10-octave cycle,
exactly like musical tones. And those inert gases? He says they aren't standard elements at all, but rather master tones acting as the universe's seed records or memory banks.
To measure these elements, the text lays out 18 distinct dimensions of motion. We've listed a few of the big ones here, ranging from length and time to sex, temperature, and tone. It creates a completely dizzying alternative framework to modern physics. But here is why it actually matters. Russell claims that if a scientist truly mastered these specific dimensions, they could literally transmute any element into another simply by altering its state of motion. It's essentially cosmic alchemy. But with all these vast cosmic mechanics at play, 10-octave cycles, electric generation, 18 dimensions spinning around, where do we fit in? How does an individual human being actually tap into this kind of universal knowledge? That brings us to our final piece of the puzzle, awakening the inner mind, grounding all of these massive philosophical claims right into the human element. Russell lays out a pretty stark contrast here within human consciousness. He says our heavy outer mind is completely bogged down by primitive physical senses. It only ever sees the temporary illusion of matter, the bubbles and the foam. But we also have an inner mind, and this mind is entirely subjective, ecstatic, and actually capable of experiencing divine thinking. It's the only tool we have that can cut through the illusion. Which leads us to this incredibly profound claim. He argues you don't actually learn anything new from studying the outside world. Zero. True intelligence, according to Russell, isn't about gathering facts. It's simply recalling the eternal knowledge that is already perfectly stored within your soul. You are just recollecting it from within the master tones of your very being. So when we look at historical geniuses, Russell argues they aren't some kind of superhuman mutants. They are simply those rare, inspired folks who figured out how to quiet their noisy outer senses and actually think in light. They aren't acquiring new data. They are accessing that universal rhythm and literally bringing that profound, eternal truth back down to earth to share with the rest of us. As we wrap up this explainer on Walter Russell's profoundly fascinating and controversial text, it really leaves us asking some huge questions about our own reality. Are we content just sitting here watching the foam and bubbles in the ocean, completely convinced they are the only reality? Will you remain trapped by the fleeting illusions of your physical senses, or will you awaken to think in light? It's a phenomenal framework that truly challenges us to rethink the absolute limits and potential of the human mind.